Well, for Nigeria, it's been quite a history politically and in terms of our electoral process in this country. The pivot of our discussion this morning is the 1993 presidential election that was said to have been the freest and most credible in the political history of this country. But that same exercise, interestingly and curiously, was annulled. That annulment, which people have called singular incident, has reshaped the political and electoral direction of this country for over 30 years. To the point that today, it will appear that every election since 1999 needs to be benchmarked against the June 12, 1993 presidential election. Question is, are there lessons that have been learned? What specifically are those lessons? In what ways have we as a nation, as a government, put those lessons to the test? And what results are we seeing, if any? Well, I'm joined by the General Secretary of the West African Civil Society Forum this morning, someone who's an expert where it has to do with election matters. James Ugochukwu, I'd like to say thank you to you for making our time to join us this special morning.
Good morning, Nigerians, and happy Democracy Day.
So I spoke with somebody just in the course of the week who told me that by his own assessment, the only election he would say could either not be judged at all or say it passed for something close to free and fair was 1999, then a bit of 2011 and 2015. And then you look back and you wonder, are we getting it right at all?
Well, when it comes to getting it right now, it's neither here or there. Neither here or there in the sense that since the transition to democracy, it seems that we are having better election in arrears. Starting from 2011, so to say, because we've come to see electoral process that is largely marred by money politics, and that's actually started from 1999. Sadly, 1999 election was not just as free as you saw it. We had issues of, the general problem when it comes to our electoral process is internal party democracy within the political party, because we have a situation whereby most of the political parties were not able to allow a free contest within their space, and at the end of the day, what we end up having is them throwing any option they like to the people to decide. So that is to say, for you to be nominated as for you to pass as a political candidate for any particular election, all you need is the goodwill of your party people. You don't need to be popular, you don't need to have a superior idea, you don't need to have the best manifesto or the best plan towards the post you are contesting for. All you have to do is just to have the buy-in and the support of your party structure, and at the end of the day, you are there and you are elected by the people, because by the time they push you to the people, people don't have any choice to say, okay, this is the people they've given to us, so let us elect. So that is what we have been seeing, except for maybe 2011, where Goodluck Jonathan was massively voted to power. Then maybe in 2015, somehow, Buhari too was elected, because the Nigerians felt that the government of Goodluck Jonathan and the PDP were not living up to their expectation. There had this speculation about corruption and all that, which were what the opposition party now used to ride into power, accusing the incumbent of corruption, mismanagement of resources and all that, which Nigerians actually largely believed them. And of course, people reflected back that, okay, this Buhari is coming. We remember when he was military head of state, he has zero tolerance for corruption and all that. So, okay, this corruption that this particular people have been accused of allegedly, that this Buhari is coming to right all those wrongs, there's going to be zero corruption. And of course, that is what they used to campaign as their campaign slogan: zero corruption, removal of fuel subsidy, exchange rate 1 naira to dollar, and all those kind of slogans that politicians are known for. But at the end of the day, we saw that Nigerians voted massively for Muhammad Buhari, and since then we've not actually been having it right as it's supposed to be, because you and I know after 2019 election, and no as person that have been in the electoral circle, the whole thing failed integrity tests that were set for both INEC, for both political parties and other stakeholders.
Interesting. Well, late former president Musa Yar'Adua had said, look, the election that produced me was marred with irregularities,
Exactly, that's
sharp practices and things like that. What would have thought was that statement was made in 2007.
Yes.
It was going to be a drastic turnaround in terms of electoral process. Has that been the case?
It has not been the case, because the person that produced even the report after Yar'Adua made that
as a waste report.
Waste report, Justice Waste just passed on last week. May so rest in peace. Produced one of the best and fantastic electoral reform report that is still a reference point when it comes to electoral amendment and all that. But for a reason best known to President Jonathan, they refused to implement the resolution or recommendation of that report up to date, and everything we are doing keep on revolving as if that is a benchmark for credible election. All the noises we are making, all the electoral reform effort we are making, still boils down to going back to what Waste report has recommended several years ago. So had it been something that was implemented to the letter, and had it been something that Yar'Adua lived enough to implement it, I think we would have had a very different electoral system now. But all those were abandoned, jettisoned by Jonathan administration, because one of the key issues there is appointment of the chairman of INEC. That report, they say they recommended that INEC chairman should not be elected by the president. I mean appointed by the president. They even recommended the National Judicial Council to be responsible in appointing chairman of INEC and other commissioners. But what do we have today? INEC chairman is completely at the pleasure of the president. The appointment of the INEC chairman, he appoints that, and he appoints other commissioners. You remember in the build-up to 2023 election, in the civil society, we cried out that several INEC commissioners are card-carrying members of political parties, which is in gross violation of the constitution. But they were appointed all the same, and we are still having the same issue here now. So now, by the time the president appoints the INEC chairman, appoints the commissioner, and most of these commissioners are being recommended by political party members, then we will have question of credibility of what the election is going to be. So we need to go back to the Waste report. The National Assembly should be able to have that courage to ensure that they remove that power of appointment of electoral management officials or commissioners away from the president and to an independent body that is beholden to Nigerians and not beholden to any big names.
So recently, just a few days ago, frontline constitutional lawyer Mike Ozekome again cycled back to this Waste report and says, look, we are going to achieve next to nothing if we do not go back to that report and implement at least some of the key resolutions there. Is that just one more talk adding to the several calls that have been made already, or do you see these as something that can happen if President Bola Tinubu finds the courage to do that?
It is not one more talk. That's what everybody has been preaching, and that is what the legislators know is the right thing. So just as I said before, would they have the courage
to implement it?
Do they have the interest of Nigeria and the interest of democracy at heart to the point of putting up electoral reform process that will give us credible election? So these are the questions we should be asking, because election is the vehicle that the democracy ride on. So the more credible election we have, the more people will have faith in democracy. The more the election is marred with malpractices and the like, the more people will start having a thought of even looking for other alternative to democracy. Because by the time somebody knows that it has been completely rigged out of election and all that, the person will not be a very bitter opposition. There's difference in you losing an election, losing a free and fair election,
right,
and when you are completely rigged out, when you know that you won this election but you are rigged out, you'll be a very bitter opposition. But if you lost in a free and fair election, you'll be able to advise the government in power, okay, do this, do that, and all that. But once you lose out of a rigged process, you become bitter and you can even start carrying out some anti-government activities that will make governance the polity now governable to the person in power. Yes.
There have been issues around reforms and more reforms. Is it possible to actually have real-time, substantial reforms in terms of elections in Nigeria without the Oasis report? Because even President Tinubu tomorrow still talks about electoral reforms. What more should we do in this regard, since we don't seem to have the balls, so to say, to drive those recommendations?
Well, the reforms we are looking about comes in different ways, right? Like by the time somebody is voted into power,
right,
irrespective, it's very, very important for you to see, okay, the reason we are in power is for you to deliver the democratic dividends. So it's a sort of electoral reform on his own part, right? Because by the time people see the kind of performance we are putting in place in terms of delivering the democratic goods, you're not okay, yes, this person is working, and of course we'll have that desire to come back to vote for him or vote for people in their own party and something like that. For instance, now look at Alex Oti in Abia State. He's the first Labour Party governor, but look at what he's doing there. Look at what he's doing there in Abia State. Transformed the city to a very beautiful city, from a dirty city to a very beautiful city. Look at Peter Mba in Enugu State. We've had several PDP governors in Enugu State before, but look at what the man is doing in a record time of just 2 years. It goes to show that somebody can put federal allocation and other internally generated revenue to good use in less than 2 years. You need to go to Enugu. You can't believe what is happening there. Transform the whole city in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of agriculture, in terms of health, in terms of tourism. Everywhere that you see that is coming up. So we are looking at, even if there's no electoral reform, you that have been put in power, can you reform the governance process there? Abidamba is simply thinking out of the box and coming up with innovation and getting his team to work. These are what we are not seeing in most previous government and all that, including this one now. So what Nigerians are desiring from people in power is that by the time you get to power, forget any other thing, concentrate in delivering the goods. And that is the next stage that we should be asking Nigeria to activate their citizens' rights, which is holding people in government accountable irrespective of how they get to power. Because it seems we have a judiciocracy, a situation whereby people will vote peacefully and everything. They will go to court after court, tribunal, appeal court to Supreme Court, and 7-man panel will decide who they want to be the winner of the election after several millions of people have voted. So if that is the kind of democracy we want to be practicing in Nigeria, then we should have active citizens that will be holding those in government accountable. Because if you are in power and you are delivering the goods, people will not come and trouble you. People will be more happy. Even if you have a second term aspiration and all that, they would gladly give it to you because there are evidences on ground that yes, you are working. There are several states like that. If you go to Abia, as I've mentioned, it's there in the southeast. You go to what do you call it, Niger State. The man is doing well in terms of agricultural revolution. Governor Bago. If you go to the Enugu State that I mentioned earlier, he has mandated every single ward, every single ward now to have what we call farm estates. I think about 10, no, minimum of 10 hectares of land. No, it should be more than 10 hectares, about 20 hectares of land or so. To have farm estates. Yes, in Enugu, so every single ward have a farm estate. In fact, if not that people from our ward have called me to be part of the farm estate, I was okay. This is just those political propaganda. They showed me the pictures where the tractor have been mobilized to site and they are clearing forest and all that. Is happening in every single ward in the state. The man is building in every ward now is building what they call a smart school, as in AI driven school in all the single wards in Enugu state. Then we talk of primary health care centers. So what this is telling you now is that he is making good use of internally generated revenue and is making good use of increased federal allocation that is coming from the removal of fuel subsidy. So citizens across Nigeria should be asking their government, their governors, what are they doing with the money that is being sent to their respective states? Because irrespective of whatever we are looking at, we should not be carried away by the deceit of the political class, because what they want us to concentrate more every time is election after election. As we speak now, we're already talking about 2027. So citizens should not be carried away by that, looking at 2027 and forgetting governance and development. Let them do their political, but hold them accountable. So, God, what are you doing with the allocation that is coming on a monthly basis? I'm not holding brief for Tinubu and all that, but let's start the blame from our immediate environment. State houses of assembly member. Yes, if I'm starting from your councillor to your local government chairman to your state houses of assembly members to your representative in the National Assembly to the governor, before you now start talking about the presidency, look at the budget, how much is coming to each of these local governments and all that, and ask your representative question. So that way, they will now know that if they are going to the polls in 2027, they need to gear up, because we have a very politically conscious and active citizens. But if we keep on asking for electoral reform every time, or what use would the electoral reform be if after appointing somebody, electing somebody to power, there is no checks and balances? Right. The person get there and it continues the culture of mismanagement of resources. It will not be of any use to anybody.
All right, let's circle back to the issue of electoral reforms. When the Electoral Act 2022 was signed into law, the provisions were signed into law by former President Muhammadu Buhari. Some person said, well, yes, it may not be the entire, the whole gamut, as it were, of recommendations, as we had in the waste report of 2007, but at least it's a piecemeal of some kind that we can see as a consolation prize of some sort. Do you think, as it stands today, that's far-reaching enough, at least going into 2027? Because this election, again, is also going to be an eye-opener in terms of how Nigerians access the umpire, which is INEC.
Well, when it comes to electoral reform issues, I think the whole thing is getting to, tending to turn to a ritual. A legislative ritual that is carried out every legislative year. The one we are making reference to now was, I know how we push Buhari to pass it. Every time they take it to him, he will find one fault or the other.
Even before the 2019 general election.
Exactly. So that is how they keep on doing it till when it was passed. There was no time for implementation. So a lot of people go. In fact, most stakeholders go into an election without even reading the Electoral Act.
How dangerous is that?
The danger in it that is gross violation of the Act itself, and there's zero mechanism in place to implement the provisions of the Act. Because as we speak now, we go to most states now, including Abuja, for instance. Now, the campaign billboard of President Bola Tinubu is everywhere. His gross violation of the Electoral Act campaign has a period that is supposed to start about...
as dictated by INEC.
Yeah, as dictated by INEC. INEC is supposed to even give us the date for election before people can even start politicking. But you can see there are billboards everywhere. But nobody is holding anybody accountable. and that is distraction from governance and development as it is. The second point is even the timing of the Electoral Act amendment process. You know, the process is always grinding slowly till some few weeks or few months to the election. They will now say they've passed the Electoral Act amendment bill. Who will have time to start studying it in face of election campaign and other political activities going on?
The pressure of electioneering.
Exactly, the pressure of electioneering. So these are the things. So if this assembly wants to help Nigerians and help themselves and help all this democracy, they should be able to pass that Electoral Act this year. As we speak, they should be able to, expedite action, and speed up the process to ensure that before September, October, this Electoral Act is passed. Then we now have the whole of 2026 to be looking at the Electoral Act, looking at all the provision. Then we now see how we can now start reforming our electoral process. Because if you pass it some couple of months before the election, where is the time to even study this new improvement that you've brought to bear for us to start implementing? There will be no time, because electionary activities will carry the whole space by then. So it's not about the rituals, as I said, as I term it. It's about doing it on time and ensuring that we even have a good content that will protect our electoral system. Because what most of the people in power, or most of the politicians don't know, is that power is ephemeral. It's a matter of time that you will not be in that power again. So whatever provision you put in place will come to haunt you at the end of the day. If you put a good process in place, you will enjoy it. If you put a bad process in place, at the end of the day, the boomerang effect will affect you one way or the other.
Now, time to begin to tie things up. You have mentioned a few times in passing the issue of accountability. Somebody has got to be held accountable for some of these mishaps and human errors, glitches, and lapses that we find with the electoral process. There has been a series of calls to say, look, let's have a special court for electoral offenders. Even the current chairman of IDEC, Professor Ugochukwu, has also made a similar call recently. How much will that help, really? And do we look like we're ready to make that commitment?
Yes, the special court is necessary, but the operation of the special court is what bothers me more, because we live in Nigeria where there are different rules for different people. For instance, now during election, you see cases of election malpractices, people destroying ballot papers, people maiming, and even going to the point of even killing their fellow human being. But at the end of the day, nothing will happen. They will go scot-free. So if we have the election court, what that will do is speedy trial of such people. But at the end of the day, are we going to be seeing a case where some people will be used as scapegoat, while some people will go scot-free after causing election malpractices? So these are the issues we'll be looking at. The tribunal is very, very important, because we cannot continue to be carrying electoral issue and be putting it in a mainstream court. It's important to have that election tribunal, get people that are election offenders and ensure that they are well dealt with, and of course the judgment and different punishments according to the electoral act will be served to them, and we ensure that they carry it to the letter. But oversighting is the most important thing. When they put this court, how do we ensure that they carry out their mandate the way it's supposed to be? How are we sure that they are not going to be influenced by external forces, or be having allegiance to maybe the ruling party or so? So the method of setting up the court, the appointment of the judges, and the board of the court and all that will be very, very important.
But let's put it to rest now. In the next 1 year, there will be 3 off-cycle elections, all of them governorship. As a matter of fact, that of Anambra is going to be in about 5 months. That's November this year. And then you have Ekiti and Osho following sometime next year. What should we expect differently? Because you and I were here also talking about Kogi, Bayelsa, and Igbo, which held on the same day, for instance. So, given all of these things we're saying, all of the remarks from INEC chairman and calls for reforms, needs to improve, and all of that, what do you expect?
Well, what we expect is an improvement to what INEC has been doing. Kept citing Undo election as an example. The Undo election that was handled by the female resident electoral commissioner was top notch. You see the delivery and all that in terms of logistics, in terms of an announcement of result and all that. So Anambra, Ekiti and Oshu is a test case in the sense that any technology that INEC is going to bring on board in 2027 needs to be test run fully in all these states. And that is what is going to be giving us a benchmark now to measure what the 2027 election is going to be in terms of politicking. And we will leave that for them because apparently every politician now, or every political party are tending to belong to one particular party. So we're going to see how that's going to play out in Anambra, in Osun, and Ekiti states. So we will know after the election or before the election if we are going to be having multi-party system or one-party system.
Well, I don't want to drag you into the one-party system theory and all of that, but I want to say a big thank you to you
Thank you
for
very much.
coming on the program this Special Democracy Day to talk
Thank
to
you.
us about what the journey has been like. I've been talking with James Ugochukwu. He's an election expert. He also is the General Secretary, West African Civil Society Forum. We'll take a quick break now. Our focus and conversation around the June 12 Democracy Day continues.